Hi, welcome to Tag Arcade. And in this tutorial, we are going to be cleaning up some warning messages that we have in our project and also talk about static classes. So if this tutorial helps you out, go to my website, www.tagarcade.com, and click on this button on the top right hand corner. So let's go ahead and go back to Unity. And we actually have two warning messages that I want to get rid of. The ones about the cross-platform input on the standard assets, usually Unity does update those, so I'm not going to be concerned about those. But these two scripts, the player controller and the game control, are scripts that we created, so Unity is not going to update them. So let's go ahead and do that. One of the warning messages says is that we used a variable called collider, and um, and pretty much that is sort of like a reserved word. So in that case, we're going to change the name of our variable. So instead of just calling it collider, I'm just going to call it sphere collider. And we have three instances of where we use it. So we have it once here. So we're just going to say sphere collider equals get component. And two more times down here, where you have sphere collider dot enabled equals false, and sphere collider dot enabled equals true. So we do file save, and when we go back to our warning messages, that warning message should go away. The next thing we want to take care of is application.loadScene is no longer in use in Unity. We should definitely use scenemanager.loadScene. So let's go ahead and double click on this to go right to it. And we'll comment this out for now. And we'll say scene manager dot load scene. And this should be game. But unfortunately, everything is in red, so maybe I need a different using statement for on the top. So let's go ahead and go to our scripting reference and find what that is. So let's go scene manager. And it turns out we need to be using Unity Engine Scene Management. So let's go back and say using Unity Engine dot Scene Management. File, save. Now if we go back, we have gotten rid of our two warning messages. And all that's left are the standard assets, which, like I said before, we'll let Unity take care of that. So now what we want to do is we want to talk about static classes. So a static class is a class where you can only have one instance of it and one instance of it only. So first, let's talk about a class that has multiple instances. So I went ahead and clicked on the enemy class, and we do have this destroy enemy on here. And if we look at enemy 2, we have another destroy enemy, and we look at enemy 3, we have another destroy enemy. So this is where we have a class used multiple times. The destroy enemy class is used on enemy 1, 2, and 3. And since we have 30 enemies in all when we play the game, this class is actually created 30 times. We have 30 instances of this. But if we use a static class, we can only have one instance, and we cannot actually drag it into Unity as well. So a common use of a static class is to create some sort of utility function. So what I'm going to do is, for this demonstration, I'm just going to create a new C# script, and I'm going to call this utility. And maybe one of the utility is when we looked at the player controller, I didn't like the fact that I had to say, bullet position equals new vector 3 x, y, z. So what I could do is I could go into my utility and say public static class, okay, file, save, And I could say something like public static void transform set z, which will take in a transform called myObject, and we'll have a float that will be a new z position. So now when we have our bullet, not our bullet, our right here, we'll take this bullet dot position, we'll copy it, and we'll paste it in here. So instead of saying bullet dot position, we're going to say myObject dot position, myObject dot position at x, myObject dot position at y, and this will be my new position at the very end. So we're going to hit File, Save, and let's go back into Unity. And already we sort of get an error message. So one of the error message is when you use a static class, it cannot inherit the Unity engine .mono behavior. So what that means is you have to delete the mono behavior part of the class, and you'll also get an error message if you leave the start and update functions in here. So we'll go ahead and get rid of those as well. So do File, Save. So now when we want to call this function, we could just say something like, we're going to say utility dot transform set z, and utility, I spelled utility wrong. Yeah, so no, I saved it. Sorry, everything is still in red. Why is it still in red? Let's try this again. Utility, okay, dot transform set z, bullet, comma, negative 27.6 f. Okay, and do File, Save. So I just want to make sure that we have no more error message in here. And yeah, our error message is gone. So now when we read the code, we could see that all we're doing is we're setting our bullet z position to negative 27.6, which sort of makes sense. Because of that, we could also do that over here. So what we're going to do is we could do something like this dot transform dot position equals vector3 dot 0. Okay, so what this means that we're going to set everything to 0, 0, 0. But now we want to change the z position to negative 17.3. So with the power of our utility function, let's go ahead and do that. We'll say utility this dot transform, comma, negative 17.3. Actually, it's not utility, but it's utility dot transform set z, and we're going to move our transform, in this case our player, to negative 17.3 f. Okay, so we could delete that. Once again, we can do File, Save, go into our Unity editor just to make sure we have no error messages, and we do not. And yeah, we essentially just created a utility script, and we applied it twice. Once to move the bullet to the bottom of the screen, and also when we create the player, we want to set the player position to negative 17.3 on the screen. So that is the power of static functions. Like I said, when you use a static function, you can't have an instance of it anywhere in your editor. So what that means is, let's say we have a game control. I can't take my utility functions and I cannot drag this in here. It's just not going to allow me. I'm going to get an error message. The other thing you've noticed is we just simply use the utility function. Because if it's a static class and you can only have one instance of it, then the editor knows exactly how to use that utility function without having to declare it. So you don't have to declare something like public utility utility. Okay, that's not needed. You just simply use it like we just did. Okay. So some other things you could do with utility is, I don't know, other functions like rounding up or rounding down. Multiply numbers by itself, things like that. You also have the math utility, which is common in C# as well. And yeah, that math utility is a static class. That's why you could use the math utility without any problems. And pretty much if you want to learn more about math utility, we could just say math C#. We'll say math class C#. And yeah, well, and within here you should have some functions, like you have math dot square root, so you could take a square root of a number to get, in this case, the square root of 49 is 7. You could do absolute value, so absolute value of -3 is +3. Also, the absolute value of +3 is just +3 as well. You could then round up and down. So these math functions are already built into C#, so it's a static class. So now you know how to create static class for your own game. And that's it. If this tutorial helps you out, like, subscribe, and all that good stuff. And until next time, have fun and keep on creating games.